sometimes when we hear the word Zen, it's a bit hard to quantify what it means. It's a bit hard to kind of actually, what exactly does Zen mean? It's, lots of people have different interpretations about it. What do you mean by Zen? And I suppose it's Buddhism is basically what it is. It started off in India. They used to have a practice called dhyana in Sanskrit. Dhyana is this meditation practice that we do. And so when some of those Buddhist monks moved to China, the Chinese didn't call it dhyana anymore. They called it Chan. You have that kind of Chan Buddhism. Bodhidharma is the legendary Indian monk who came to China. And then later on, when Dogen and some of the other priests went to China, they brought it back to Japan, and rather than calling it Chan, they called it Zen. It's the same character, just the pronunciation is different. So of course, when it was in China, the Buddhism mixed in with the Taoism, so it became that kind of a little bit different, I suppose, to the Indian Buddhism, which is very colourful and exciting. Not exciting, but colourful, and lots of different aspects to it. Whereas Zen Buddhism tends to be more simple. I think it's fair to say it tends to be simple in its nature. So I think there's a certain kind of simplicity about Zen Buddhism, but it's also very practical. That we try to do the right thing at each moment. And so on. And another thing about Zen Buddhism is it doesn't have a big belief system. We don't kind of believe in a lot of stuff, in the sense of we don't really talk about reincarnation, or we don't have to believe in almost anything. We believe in doing our practice, and of course following the Buddhist precepts or the Buddhist teachings as best we can. And I asked Nishijima about this myself when I was younger, when he was teaching. And one reason I wanted to ask him was because I grew up as a Catholic, and when you grow up as a Catholic or a Christian, you get a lot of beliefs. You learn a lot of things like, I'm not saying that what they believe is wrong or untrue, but for example, of course, God made the world is one big belief, and Jesus is was God's Son, came to earth, and so on, and when you die, you can go to heaven or hell or purgatory, and that might be true. I'm not saying that that's not true. So I grew up in that background where you had a lot of beliefs about different things, and it went right into our daily life. We believed that the Pope was infallible, so the Pope couldn't make a mistake. The Pope said something that was right, and of course then follow that on, the bishops were right and the priests were right, and that kind of stuff was very important to me when I was growing up, because we read about it, and we were told that this is the truth, and so on and so forth. So we all kind of worked on that basis, and if you do some bad thing, it's a sin, and God is watching you, and if you do a sin, you have to go to church, go to confession and confess your sins, and God will forgive you and all that. And that's fine, and I think if people believe that, I think that works quite well. But in my own case, the situation was I just found it hard to believe, and I got interested in Buddhism as a result. I wasn't really that interested in Buddhism as such. But what happened to me was I was in Kyoto in Japan. I was studying Japanese for a year, and I was studying in a course for foreigners. We were all a bunch of non-Japanese people studying Japanese. And one of the people, after a while, one of my friends there said to me, do you want to go to a Zen temple for a day, just to kind of like some place like this, and do a one-day retreat, for about 6 or 7 hours. And I'd been to kind of Zen temples before, just as a tourist, and I'd even done Zazen for about 20 minutes at one particular place. But it hadn't really, it hadn't really grabbed me. It wasn't really something I felt like I really want to do this. It was more like, So I went along. I said, okay, I'll go anyway. You're going, I'll go with you just to keep you company. When I went along and we did Zazen there for, I think it was about 40 minutes at a time. We did it about 5 times, 6 times during the day. And even though I couldn't even cross my legs, I was sitting like this, you know, like that, you know, trying to sit like that, you know, and all these other people were there doing all sorts of stuff, you know. But I found, oh, this is helpful, this works. I could see why people do this, because afterwards I felt really great, you know. The next day I felt, oh, wow, this is great, I felt really, you know. And the next day I went out and visited all these Zen temples in Kyoto, and, you know, had a great time. And after that I could see, okay, I can understand why people do this as it has an effect. It works to some extent. So that got me interested in it, and I got, you know, I didn't get a zafu, but I got some blankets. I started to sit on the blankets at home just for 10 minutes every day, and not even every day, once in a while, and all that kind of stuff. And gradually I started to feel like, oh yeah, okay, this is something I should check out more. It does seem there is something to do to this, you know. I was a bit skeptical at first. I thought this is a bit stupid. I'm sure it's a waste of time. But after doing it myself, without anybody bothering me about it or anybody telling me about it, I could see that there was something about it that was right for me personally. I'm not saying it's right for everybody, but I could feel something about the practice, not so much the teaching, but the practice was working good. So I decided to check it out a bit more. Now, I didn't really know about temples and things like that, but there was a book in Japan at the time called Zen Guide, which I bought. And in those days there was no internet and there was no that kind of stuff. So I just bought the Zen Guide, and it gave lists of different groups in Japan. And there was a Tokyo section and a Kyoto section, and, you know, another section. So I checked out some of these groups in the Tokyo region. But a lot of them were just the guy that, you know, the teacher had left Tokyo, he'd left Japan, he'd come back to Australia or someplace like that. Or they weren't holding the meetings anymore, or it just wasn't working out. And I found one place called, it was Tai Soji. And I got up really early. They had their meetings at, I think, 7 o'clock or something. I got up really early one morning and went down there, and they did do Zazen practice, and I went in and did it. But after about 20 minutes, they rang the bell, and the priest got up and left because he was busy with with funeral ceremonies. He had to do a funeral ceremony. So I had come along, I spent about an hour and a half in the train to get down there, and then he just, you know, okay, sorry, we have to finish early today. So I felt a bit disappointed. But there was one place in the book in Tokyo called the Nishijima Group. And I was kind of reluctant to contact the Nishijima group because it said in the book, it said Nishijima is a Buddhist, he's a businessman priest. And I said, oh no, I don't want to go there. He's a businessman, he's a priest, that doesn't sound too good. And it was being held at the Tokyo University Young Buddhist Association. And I wasn't too keen on going to the Tokyo University either. It didn't sound right. But I went along anyway. He was kind of the last chance for me in the book. So I telephoned Nishijima. He gave his phone number. I called him up and I said, you know, I'm interested in Buddhism. Can you help me? And he said, yes. Come along on Saturday. And I said, are you on the 7th floor? And he said, no, we're not on the 7th floor. We're on the 2nd floor. And I said, okay, I'll go along. I'll be there. So I started going to Nishijima's Zazen practice regularly, you know, not every week, but quite regularly. And initially I was just interested in the Zazen. I wasn't really interested in his talks, to be honest with you. I mean, his talks were interesting, but I was mainly there for Zazen. Because his talks, he was talking about the Shobogenzo a lot, and it was just kind of difficult to understand, and I hadn't a clue. So I used to sit in the back and not say anything. Keep my head down. But after doing it for a while, after going to his talks for a while, I listened and I heard him talk about Shobogenzo and all this stuff. And I started to get a kind of an inkling of what Buddhism was about.